Yeah, about another issue, so.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready to get going. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hyde Park Town Board meeting. It's our regular meeting and workshop. Today's Monday, March 26th. Please join me while we pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we have a workshop coming, but I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes of March 12th.
I make a motion to accept.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have a number of resolutions on the agenda, and I'd like to invite anybody up from the audience to speak on any of those, if they would like. Okay, with that being said, and no takers, we'll move right on to our workshop discussion. And we've invited here a group that will be discussing the community choice aggregation of electricity. And welcome and thank you for coming. And if you would like to start, do we have mics for you guys? Okay, good. Yeah, so maybe you'd just like to introduce yourself and then launch into why you're here and what you're going to tell us about.
Well, I'm Jeff Demansky. I'm with an organization, it's a not-for-profit called the Institute for Building Technology and Safety, or IBTS. It's not one of the best acronyms, I apologize, but it's a good organization. It's a not-for-profit that focuses on supporting small and medium governments, providing shared services, and I'm a senior manager in energy and sustainability, so this area is my focus area. And this is my colleague, Victor.
Hi.
Yep, Victor Pierre Melendez. I work with Jeff, program development and advising. And
I'm Glenn Weinberg. I'm from Jewel Community Power, and we are a community choice aggregator and municipal energy consultant. So that's what we'll be discussing largely today. And with that, I guess I'll sort of launch into our slides here.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. I know it's best to face everybody. Okay, so first, just to clear the field a little bit, the program, the policy that we're talking about today is another one of these not great acronyms, Community Choice Aggregation, or CCA. And really what it is a municipal energy policy. It's only for cities, towns, and villages. New York State is the 7th state in the country to operationalize a policy like this. There are 6 other states that have done so. It goes back about 20 years in the case of Massachusetts and a little bit more recent for other states. In New York, the program is roughly about 2 years old. So there's still only one operational program of its kind in the state, and that is the pilot program in Westchester County. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a couple minutes. I was the inaugural program director of that Westchester pilot program, and now I'm working to build the 2nd and 3rd and 4th generation of these programs all around the state, and one right here in the Hudson Valley that has, we've got a really good core group of municipalities and now growing number of municipalities that are engaged and interested in looking at this now that we're getting closer and closer to the implementation phase of this process. But first and foremost, what the CCA is, or allows a municipality to do, is to designate the default supply for its residents and small businesses. So for about 20 years in New York State, we've had deregulated supply markets. So the delivery side, the distribution of electricity, is still a regulated monopoly, as it always has been, right? And that's Central Hudson. It's always, Central Hudson owns the poles and wires. They have a monopoly on that. They're your distributor of energy, and you have no choice in that. However, on the supply side of your bill is actually 2 bills, a supply bill and a delivery bill. On the supply side of your bill, you do have choice, and you've had that choice for about 20 years now. And many people have had experiences in that marketplace. However, about 80% of New Yorkers have never chosen an alternate supplier, or have chosen one and are now have chosen to go back to the utility. And there's good reason for that, because that market has been sort of notoriously predatory. That is, a number of these competitive suppliers use some of these unfortunate tactics, sales tactics, and deceptive tactics to get folks into a program, and then they sort of balloon the rate and other practices. And the state is attempting to crack down on that marketplace. And one of the ways in which they're addressing that marketplace is with community choice aggregation. Community choice aggregation really creates a consumer protective layer around the community. So the municipality can bring on a consultant or a group like ours that can come in and develop an RFP and develop a supply contract, and then go out to the marketplace with those specifications and with that contract, and really to dictate the terms of that energy buy in a way that consumers do not have the power to dictate the terms of which they buy energy now. Right now, it's very much a one-way market, right? You react to the offers that are out there. What community choice aggregation does is allows you to turn the tables and allows you to set the terms of how you want to buy. And that includes price, it includes fixed versus variable pricing, it includes term lengths, how long you want a contract to be, and perhaps most importantly, it includes sourcing of the energy itself. So what community choice aggregation has been used for, most notably in California and now in Massachusetts and New York, is to use that power to select the default supply mix in your city, town, or village, in the town, to source local renewable energy. So that's really one of the principal foci of our program, is to source clean energy, and to do so while still saving people money. So this is just an illustration of that kind of division of your bill. You see total delivery charges here, total supply charges here. Community choice aggregation addresses the supply part of the bill. Central Hudson still controls the poles and wires. They still respond to outages when the power goes out. They still do the billing. They still do the metering. They do all of that traditional utility stuff. It's simply the town's decision where they buy their energy from and on what terms. So this is sort of what it looks like. You know, I'm talking about the kind of opaque marketplace that the supply market is for most consumers. This is what it looks like when you go and try to shop for energy competitively. What you see is just a lot of prices that, and really no way of telling them apart, right? So you say, well, why wouldn't I just take the lowest price? Why would anybody go for the high? But when you dig down a little bit deeper, you can realize that there's a couple of other components here: the term length, cancellation fee, and whether or not it's sourced with renewable power. But this gives you very little information, right? And it's very difficult for most consumers to make that comparison. And like I said, many times consumers that do get into one of these contracts end up regretting it because there are these fine print terms that they haven't read, and the price ends up doubling after 3 months, or going to a ballooned market rate after a small fixed rate period. With community choice aggregation, you can use that market leverage, that collective buying power of the whole town, and actually groups of towns. So there are several towns that have signed on to the program already, and we hope several more will come on here in these next couple of months while we're ready to, while we're still sort of preparing to go out to bid. And by harnessing that collective buying power, one, it allows us to get a better price. Two, it allows us to dictate the terms. And three, it allows us to really come to a consensus as a community or groups of communities about what's important to us, how we want to buy our energy, and from where. I think you can skip probably a couple of these. Like I said, Central Hudson still are the boots on the ground maintaining the system. They're fixing the lines when they go down. They're responding to your calls, et cetera. Again, New York is the 7th state. This is a little bit of a brief snapshot of how the other programs are structured and what the level of participation has been. Community choice aggregation has been identified by NYSERDA as one of their 10 high impact actions. So I don't know if you guys have engaged any in the Clean Energy Communities program, but you know that you have to do, if you have, I saw some shaking, some nodding heads. So you have to complete 4 of these 10 high impact actions to qualify. So community choice aggregation is one of those 10 that qualifies you for the Clean Energy Communities program. So the Westchester pilot, as I alluded to earlier, we launched in May of 2016 with 20 communities, 20 cities, towns, and villages in Westchester County, and roughly 100,000 electric customers, so 100,000 accounts. To date, those customers have seen more than $6 million in savings in their almost 2 years of existence. And at that, and it was when we went out with that bid, 70% of those 100,000 customers are enrolled in a 100% renewable option. And that's because 14 of those 20 municipalities set that 100% renewable option as the default product for their community, for their residents and small businesses. And the reason that they could do that was because the price for that renewable power was actually less expensive than the average historical price that they had been paying with Con Ed and New York State Electric and Gas. So that's why you can get that dual goal, right? You can both save money and buy renewably, and that's the largest renewable energy purchase in New York State history still. It's a free opt-out at any time, meaning that any individual consumer can choose to leave the program either before it begins or at any time thereafter with no penalty whatsoever. Also, often when you get in with an alternate supplier, they have a termination or cancellation fee, early termination fee. There's no such structure with community choice aggregation. The consumers are free to leave anytime they like and go back to the utility or choose any other alternate supplier that they like. Okay. So this is just so you see those 2 lines. Those are the fixed price product options for Westchester Power. You see they both go up at the same time in equal amounts, and that's when the zero emission credits were added to the bill. That was added to the bill for every New Yorker. It was not exclusive to the CCA, but that's the explanation for the increase in price in midstream. Otherwise, it's an absolute fixed price. It's the same rate every month. And then you see what the Con Ed rate has done, right? Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. Most of the time it's higher. And because of that, those customers have saved a lot of money because there are some months, like for instance, January of this year, where the rate was 3 or 4 pennies higher per kilowatt hour than the fixed rate was. And that accounts for hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings in just 1 month. And this is the cumulative savings. It's another representation of that same data, and I'm happy to, this is good just for reference, so I'm happy to discuss it more if people want to revisit that. This is a look at what the Westchester Power website. So this is just kind of the simple message to the consumer of their options, right? They can choose the renewable product. They can choose the basic product. They can opt in, they can opt out, very simple choices to the consumer. So it's some pretty complex stuff to talk about energy markets and buying, et cetera. But the interface for the consumer has to be very simple and very straightforward. So this, we're here really after probably 2 years of preparation with, that was started in this area by a group called Renewable Highlands. And they came to us, they started trying to figure out what they can do really to advance sustainability for communities throughout the Hudson Valley, the lower Hudson Valley. And they came to us probably a couple years ago because they had heard that we were putting together the Westchester Power program and came to us and sort of said, tell us about CCA. And so that was really the beginning of a great relationship with them. And they have made the recommendation for us, for Jewel, to the communities, for the communities to select us as the CCA administrator, which they have. And they've also made the recommendation for Jeff and Victor and IBTS to play the role of the program organizer, which is really the local arm of the administrative operation. And I'll let them tell you a little bit more what they've been working on. But that's really the sort of origin of this program today. Really started by a grassroots nonprofit group called Renewable Highlands, which has now led to the two of us in a partnership, the two organizations, Jewel and IBTS, in a partnership as the program administrator going forward. Just a couple of points about us, about Jewel. So myself, along with our CEO, we're really the two that launched the Westchester Power Program. We were doing meetings like this, every night for months and months and months, just running around the county and doing this sort of educational information sessions, and all the organization and the program design and up through implementation and launch. As of about 11 days ago, we got state approval for our newest implementation plan, which has a very innovative component to it, which allows us to source energy from local solar projects, not the rooftop solar that you may have, that a residential customer may have on the roof, but larger scale projects that are more like, if a rooftop is 10 kilowatts, these projects are more like 2 or 3 or 4 megawatts, right? So an order of magnitude larger, but not so large that of the sort of real sort of solar farms that you see in the deserts in the West. Sort of middle scale as far as utility power plants go, a middle scale size projects, and they're all over. They're in the pipeline. Very few have actually been built yet.
There are actually 5 of them before our planning board right now.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So you know that they're this pipeline is coming quickly down the pipe, and so we're going to see, if we're here 12 and 18 months from now talking about this, those 5 projects may all be built, right, and maybe even more before you're bored at that time. So this is where the energy industry in New York is headed, to these medium scale renewable energy projects. And so we have designed a program structure that allows us to buy directly from that. And we're the only CCA administrator that has that authority from New York State. So we're really excited about that, and we've been working on developing that product for quite a while now. So it really just sort of came to fruition 11 days ago when the Public Service Commission finally approved our plan. And now we want to run really fast and get the word out to both communities that have been sort of waiting on the sidelines and communities like yours that are just really hearing from us for the first time. And there really is still time for communities to get back right on track to where the rest of the communities are that we represent in the area. But it's a small sort of window now for the next couple months for communities to sort of consider this and decide how they want to explore it. Okay. This is really this is sort of the detailed version of what I just said. So again, you can review this later and feel free to send me questions after. And these are some of the details of that plan too, which again we can come back to when there are questions. This is a comparison of our program versus some of the other competitive administrators in the state. And we show this to you not just to brag about how many check marks we have in our column, but to say that they really are very different programs. The basic community choice aggregation program really is first and foremost a wholesale commodity buying program. The program that we have proposed and now have approval for from the state is really about procuring local clean energy, and that is our primary focus. So if that is something that is a priority here in town, that's something that is really the core principle of our program. We are not just a broker, an energy broker. We really are you know, our DNA is really a clean energy and energy efficiency company. That's what we do, and that's the kind of program that we've designed here.
On the one
Yeah.
slide, a few back, the additional element of the PSD approved plan, where you talked about the smart meters too. If you wouldn't mind just talking about the additional elements. Could you back up a few slides?
Yeah, so the other, yeah, so I think he means the next one. Yeah, so this last bullet here, we recently also received a first of its kind license from the New York Independent System Operator, which is a mouthful, but it's the entity that runs the New York grid. And they run all the energy markets in New York State. So we have a license now. We are the only entity in New York State to have a license to actually pay people that have smart Wi-Fi thermostats in their home to participate in what are called demand response programs. And that's a program that the grid will actually pay customers for their willingness to cut back on consumption when the grid is congested, when the grid is getting towards peak demand. So this is a program that's been around for quite a while for much larger users. It's never been accessible for small customers like residential and small business customers. So this is another program that we're particularly excited about because this gives the small customers the opportunity to play in the markets that these big guys have been you know, seeing revenue from for a couple of decades now. And that's something that we will, you know, as we get further down the road, that's something that we'll come back and give you much more color on and tell you how we can, the services that we can offer to the town residents. So this is my my handoff point to Jeff here.
That's where I steal the mic. And thank you for going back to that slide, and thank you for having us here tonight. But the reason I wanted Glenn to talk about that one element of the program is that it explains some of the value of what Victor and I are doing as local organizers. CCA is a great program that takes advantage of laws that have been in place for a while. It takes advantage of deregulation at a municipal level. You know, puts the leadership in a position where it can do something for its citizens through that. And what's really, we know that there's some value to it, but we also know that there's lots of moving parts to it. And I've been working in the field for, I'm you know, kind of proud to say, over 20 years now in energy and sustainability and working with local governments on this. And I know that communicating on these issues is very important, and being there as a resource to support the decision-making that can be very valuable to the community and its members is very important, having those resources in place. And that's something that's unique about this CCA program that we're talking about, our program, is that it does include us. It's IBTS as a local organizer, as we're named in the implementation plan. And so our role is to help in the outreach and education consistently throughout the life of the program. There are official requirements that every CCA will do that we will take charge of, and we have something on the slides coming up where we've taken some of the screenshots from the Westchester Power program, which will be duplicated for us, and we'll get to those in a second. But you know, the way the program rolls out is that it is very much a design of the communities involved. So you know, if you were to choose to participate in the program, you would be the leaders helping to determine what the elements of the program are, what the supply requirements are, what the pricing requirements are, what elements that we've talked about that are possible are going to be included in the program. So we serve as a vehicle for your voices and the community members' voices to be heard and to have you know, a voice in the process. This, the screen that was just showing a second ago was from our predecessors, the Renewable Highlands Group, where they had it still exists on their website, and we're working to transition for a program-specific website for us. But this was a survey option so that people could go when they've heard about the program and they could give us some feedback, very valuable feedback, so we understood what was important to different folks in different parts of the communities. So those options that we're going to help with. These are those screenshots from the Westchester Power program, from the website, and from materials that are available. And in the essence of what a CCA program is that it takes advantage of an opt-out structure, where if you're a resident and you've not made a power choice, if you've not gone and picked a power supply alternative from the utility, you're by default opted in. But we do a great deal of effort with the support of the community's leadership to make it clear that it is an opt-out program. You do not have to participate. There's no cost and there's no requirement. And we make it simple through multiple pathways to opt out. So that's what the language shown on the screen is showing, that there's multiple ways that consumers can opt out. It can be website for the more tech savvy. There's going to be a phone number. There was a phone number in Westchester. There's a mailer that's going to go out. And there's multiple mailings that happen so that people understand what the program is about and how you can benefit from it, but also how you can get out of it very easily at no cost at any time. So no cost and no commitment. And so I think there's a number of just, focused images. That's just a little focus from the previous screen talking about the opt-out options. This shows the form from the website, how somebody would just fill in the form to opt out of the program. And again, that is largely the role that we are playing, to make sure that there is good, basically, customer service, to make this as easy and understandable and painless as possible. And I think that's largely our emphasis point, but then there are certain elements that we were potentially going to go into a little bit further. Glenn, I think I'm handing it back to you.
So I've teased a little bit the local clean energy piece, and that's really because it's essential, first of all, to understand what the sort of core of program is behind community choice aggregation, and most importantly, really, how it looks to the consumer and what their options are, and what we'll do to support them. And that's really the most critical piece of a successful program like this, because it does involve the residents and it is an opt-out program. This becomes the default supply in town. That means that we have to have really good and accessible information available to the consumers when they have questions about it. And that is the most important point here. But for almost every CCA in the country, the story really ends there. It's about using collective power, collective buying power in the market to get a better deal, to get a fixed rate, and to support consumers more locally. However, our program is, again, the first of its kind to propose such a structure that actually connects the consumers directly with local clean energy projects right in their municipalities, just as those 5 projects that may get built here. And here's speaks to that point. Here are the local projects right here, and there may be more already. Just as you said, there's more than that are showing up on here, but each of those red dots are a project in the pipeline that residents in Hyde Park or Poughkeepsie or really anywhere on this map could buy from. And that's the way the state has set up this program, that any project that's in your same utility territory and same grid zone is eligible for consumers to buy directly from. And so that's what this program does, is it basically creates a direct link from a project like these red dots, like those red dots, and large groups of customers that have been aggregated by a program like this. Sorry, I'm giving you a hard time here. All right, so this is, and the next slide is really just another representation of that slide in terms of quantifying the market, and really to show you, right, here is the capacity of the projects that have been built already, and here a number quite roughly about 10 times that size is the pipeline capacity. All that to say, just as we made the point earlier, all that to say that this market is really expanding very quickly, and before we know it, there's going to be dozens of these types of projects, hundreds of these projects all over the state, dozens just in this area alone. And this is a small window of opportunity to really take advantage of the value that's created by those projects, because New York State has incentivized the compensation structures around those projects to save consumers money. That is why they have incentivized these projects. They've structured them so that consumers will save money when they subscribe to these projects. And our proposal is an attempt to take advantage of that opportunity. And that's the last one. So I hope there are questions, and we can kind of share the mic if there are.
Yeah,
Can you speak about the existing program participants at all?
That was going to be my question.
Timeline.
Yes. Well, why don't I let Jeff do
So the program is, yeah, we could speak to the timeline, and glad to go into more detail on that. But currently, there are 4 communities that are, what's that? No. We'll leave our contact, probably better for further conversation. But there's 4 communities that are currently enabled and have selected us, our team, as the administrators for the program. And that is the city of Beacon, the town of Fishkill, the village of Cold Spring, and Phillipstown, which surrounds Cold Spring. We are in conversation with other communities right now that there is still time to join based on the timeline. We've been working with the city of Poughkeepsie and just were there as a technical resource to help them understand the opportunity. And I forget the exact date. I should know this offhand, but there's too many dates. But it was, what was this? The council, when the council did pass a resolution to enable the law so that they can continue to explore a CCA. And then next choice would be for them to determine if they want to, which administrator, if they decide to proceed with that, to select an administrator. So we've been as a resource for them, and we've been doing presentations and are glad to be here tonight to tell you about these options. I think that's, we are moving towards, on the timeline that the window of opportunity is probably through, into May, maybe? Is that what we're thinking right now, Glenn?
Yeah. I mean, we'll essentially be looking to go out with an RFP to the, to suppliers in the spring. So that gives the communities that are just kind of getting up to speed on it a month or two to look at it and think about following those communities that have already passed legislation and have signed on to the program.
Okay, so maybe I'll just try to recap what you all said. And
Ambitious,
just,
yes.
well, without the detail. But so essentially what you're doing is you're giving us an option to purchase our delivery, the supply. And when you refer to the community, that means the entire town of Hyde Park would then use this source as our supplier.
Yes, the only exception, and that was great, the only exception to that is that any resident or small business in town that has already signed a contract with somebody else, with one of those other list of suppliers that you can go and shop for on, those customers would not be affected. They can, however, opt into the program if they should choose to terminate their contract or it expires, but they should just be careful to make sure that if they want to do that, that they look at their contract and they give a call to make sure there's no fees.
And so, I'm sorry.
So right now, everyone's default is Central Hudson.
Yeah.
But, so this would just be changing the default to something else, but everyone could still make their own choice.
Exactly. It's another choice. It does not disqualify any of the choices they currently have, including Central Hudson.
And so the process would be that the town board would pass a resolution to join the group. Is that and what other responsibilities would the town have?
Yeah. So the way that it's set up, it's a state regulation that draws on municipal home rule authority. So it's only for cities, towns, and villages. But in order to enable your authority to explore community choice aggregation, you first have to pass a local law. And that local law really does only that enabling function. It serves only that enabling function. It does not commit the town to anything. It only says that we can look into this and we can go ahead and authorize a CCA program in the town of Hyde Park should we choose to. So that is a step, and that's a step I recommend that you take, that you look at anyway, whether you select us as administrator or not. It's purely flexibility. It's purely an enabling law, and there's no commitment in it. The other next step is that you select an administrator. We hope it's us, but even if it's not, those are the 2 immediate steps that you have to take in order to move forward. You need an administrator and you need to pass that enabling local law. If you do select us as your administrator, there are never any costs to the municipality itself. The only way that we get compensated is if we are successfully able to deliver a contract that meets your specifications, and you define those specifications. If we can deliver a bid and a contract that meets those specifications, and you sign it, then we get paid 8/100ths together, all together, and we split it 50-50. 8/100ths of a penny per kilowatt hour that's consumed under that contract, and it's not the municipality or the customer that pays that to us, it's the supplier that we contract with owes that to us. So that's how we get compensated, but it is our risk, essentially, even if you select us as an administrator, and by selecting us, you protect us to say that you're not going to select somebody else, you know, in the near future. It protects us for a certain period of time. But even if you do select us, still the town has not made any formal commitment whatsoever. All you've done is authorize to act on your behalf, to go out and get data, to analyze it for you, to present you with options, and to help you explore this. You still have several more milestones left in the process before which you have to make any formal commitment. You're not really committing until that supply contract is finalized and you've determined the criteria under which, or the conditions under which, you will sign that contract. So you're essentially setting the specifications for that RFP, that if they are not met, you have not committed to anything. If they are met, you're committing to sign a contract.
So the town, you present the RFP and the town reviews it to assure that it's reflective of the goals that they want to achieve?
Yes, but even collaboratively before that, we work with you really
I
to
mean,
get
I
it.
wouldn't have any clue.
Well, does each
Well,
town
to
do
be
their own, or
honest.
it's the whole group of
It's a
towns?
joint
right?
it's a joint
Yeah.
RFP, but that RFP can reflect the priorities of several communities in the form of options. So really, you know, there's no limit. There's no reason not to ask the suppliers to come back with a whole bunch of options, a whole bunch of term lengths, you know, pricing options, all that sort of thing. You know, we want the maximum amount of flexibility that we can, and there's no reason not to ask them to give that to us in that RFP. I understand you saying, well, I don't know energy markets, so what am I going to? Really, the sorts of things that we want to hear your priorities on are really sourcing, right? Some price benchmarks, right? And these are sort of basic components of that RFP. The details, the details of that solicitation are, I'll get into the weeds of energy markets, but we really want to hear from you and from your community about what's important to them, you know?
Well, I think if we could just back it up to one of your earliest slides, the projected savings, because, you know, essentially there has to be an incentive for
Yes.
the community or to pursue it. So on average, what would you say a typical homeowner would say or saved in the Westchester
It's
CCA?
Yeah, it's about $50 to $75 a year.
Mhm.
So it's not tremendous savings. That's pretty typical of, so in aggregate, of course, it's pretty impressive when we say that in total we've saved $6+ million. But on the individual homeowner level, it's not tremendous savings. It's usually between 5 and 10% on that delivery portion of the bill. And remember that is not the whole bill, so that does not impact the other half of the bill, which is regulated and is Central Hudson's charges. We can't really touch that with this program. However, the local clean energy component of this, which is additive to those savings that we can realize by getting a better supply contract, the local clean energy comes at guaranteed savings to the consumer. And the reason for that has to do with the way that New York State has set up the tariff structure around those projects in particular. And again, that gets, you know, the details of that get in very much into the weeds of energy markets, and I don't want to do that. But when we get a little further down the road, and there are questions really about sort of how the sausage is made, I'm happy to describe why we can guarantee savings for the local clean energy. Most people are accustomed to having to pay more for renewable energy. And that was, in fact, the case in Westchester. The renewable product is more expensive than the basic product. So there's been a lot of changes in the marketplace that have, and New York State is very intentionally creating new markets that create savings for customers. So customers can actually see much more savings with this new structure than they are seeing even currently in the Westchester case.
how long is the contract that we would have with you? Is it a 10-year or 20-year or?
So for the basic supply contract, those contracts tend to be 3 to 5 years, 2 to 5 years really. And it's a tri-party contract, so it's the town, it's the supplier that we select that wins the RFP, and it's us. So we are contracted together in a tri-party contract for that the duration of that contract, say 3 years. The solar developers, and I'm sure you're already getting accustomed to this market. The solar developers need a much longer contract term because they need to secure financing, right? So they need to know that there's a customer on the other side for at least 10, 15, and even 20 years. So those contracts look very different. And in that case, what we would ask you to do, if you were interested in the local clean energy component, is to make a commitment to offer to offer the credits from those projects for, say, 10 years as a default, as a component of the default supply product for your residents. So it's not, you don't have the same sort of contractual obligation to the supplier. It's a little bit of a different arrangement, but it is a longer term arrangement.
Okay.
We'd be giving a credit to the farm, the solar farm?
You get it, the credits come to the customer's bill. The way that the New York State has set it up, and it's a little bit complicated, so I'll say that to begin with. But
You lost me a while.
But the way that these projects work is that the folks that sign up for them, they get compensated, or they get sort of paid by credits being applied by the utility onto their bill. And then they pay a discounted rate for the right to get those credits. Again, it's a little bit, counterintuitive, but that's the way that New York State has set it up, and it's effective in delivering savings to consumers, even though it's not, even though it tends to be a little bit difficult to understand the first time around. Yeah.
Anyone else have any other questions?
You mentioned there,
Oh, Pete, come
I'm
on.
sorry.
No, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
You mentioned that New York State gives incentives now. Who are they giving the money to?
Well, what they're doing is, the way that they're providing incentives is they've created a tariff. And that is a rate, essentially, that the utilities are forced to pay to the developers of these solar projects for their power. So typically when you have a power plant, when you own a power plant, you sell your power on the open market, and that market, the rate that you get for that energy fluctuates with the market, and it's just a fair market rate. This is quite different. They wanted to incentivize these small projects that typically on price can't compete with the larger power plants. The big gas and nuclear power plants produce power at a much cheaper rate. So what they did to incentivize these projects is they said, okay, no, you're not going to have to just sell it on the wholesale market and get what you get. The utility, we're going to mandate that the utility pays you a certain fair rate based on the value that you're providing to the grid. So it's a very innovative sort of structure. This is, and I should say, the whole state, and even the whole country, and even the whole world is watching New York State energy policy right now. New York State has one of the most innovative energy policies in the entire world. And that's only in the last 2 or 3 years. So we're just starting to really get into the second and third sort of phase of the development of this brand new energy regime. But it's these sort of innovative structures that New York State has created, and really to engage customers. They've done so to make it fair and to make it valuable for smaller customers like residential and small commercial.
Question for you. When you go out for RFP, is it typically based upon a fixed price that you're looking to get back?
That is our model, yes.
So, one of the questions that I was thinking about was, how do you go out with an RFP though if you can't guarantee the supplier a certain amount, like of customers, or is that what the RFP is based on, that we're going to supply you with whatever it is, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 customers, is that, I mean, because I would think if I was bidding on it, I'm going to say, okay, well, I'll give you like a good rate as long as you agree to supply me with, you know, X amount of customers.
It's a really good question. No, we don't have to guarantee them a certain amount of customers. What we tell them is the data about the communities that are participating, the number of customers, how much energy they use on a monthly basis,
Yeah.
how much energy they use at peak. And from that, they're able to model out, and they have a lot of data on other programs that have done this, have used this structure before. They know roughly how many people are likely to stay in, likely how many people are likely to leave, et cetera, and they do some modeling after that. And then that's how they construct their bids. But the contract is what's called a firm full requirements price. And what that means is they agree to serve us with that fixed price, those steady
Yeah,
bars,
I saw that,
every
yeah.
single month, no matter if 20% of the program leaves in a month or if 10,000 people move into town. They have to give us the same price no
Okay,
matter
I
what.
was just
And the way they
curious.
do that in the market is they balance their risks by hedging out that price. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I think as the supervisor brought up, and of course, everyone appreciates the value of renewable energy, but, you know, I think the question that most people would ask is, you know, are we really going to save money? And they would be concerned about a risk of locking in at a price and it ends up that the prices go down. So how would you answer that question if people ask?
Yeah, so of course, it's like fixing a mortgage rate, right? There's no guarantee. That's why I really emphasize the guarantee around the clean energy program, because with community choice aggregation, typically or traditionally, there is no way to guarantee savings, right? That's what you're doing. You're doing just that. You're getting a fixed price that slices through, and you're doing so strategically. You're doing so with buying power at your back. And you're doing so with knowledge of the market. So right now is actually a very good time to go out to bid because gas prices are low, and that's really the indicator that determines electricity prices, at least in New York State. So knowing that, having all that, and having a really good, solid supply contract, we know we're going to get really competitive fixed rate bids. We do not know what Central Hudson's rates are going to do. When we went out to bid for Westchester, we didn't know what Con Ed's rates were going to do. It's turned out that it saved a lot of people a lot of money because there have been several months where Con Ed's rates have been really high. And that's what does happen with utility rates, is that they tend to be when demand is really high, like when it was freezing cold in January and we had a lot of energy demand in the grid, rates went up. And that's the real power of a fixed rate, is that most months you're going to be pretty competitive with utility rates. But then there's going to be those 1 or 2 months a year, as you see, where those utility rates balloon up, and that's when you're going to save a lot of money. So when you put it all together, those customers have saved $6.5 million. But when we signed that contract, all we knew was that the prices that we were getting were lower than what they had been. We didn't know what they would be going forward. So you can never guarantee savings on this piece of it. However, with the local clean energy component, we can in fact guarantee savings. And so that's the new offering here.
So, but I mean, if we lock into a price for 3 years and after 2 years, the Central Hudson's prices magically go down, I mean, people could just opt out? Is that the remedy, or?
Yes, people can opt out at any time for any reason. But certainly, if Central Hudson rates stay low for an extended period of time, even we would come in and help you communicate to residents, hey, look, we have a fixed rate. Central Hudson's rates have been lower than our rate for now 3 or 4 months in a row. And so here, if you are interested, if you do want to opt out, here's how we do it. We would in fact guide you to do that. When you select us as an administrator, you're hiring us to be your consultant, right? Yes, we do have a way of getting compensated, but we are contracted to serve the municipality's interest and its residents.
Okay. Warren, did you have that? Okay, all right.
So-
Were there other, oh, I'm sorry.
Right, go on.
You mentioned the 4 communities that had locked in, and then the city of Poughkeepsie was considering it. Are there others that are considering that you can share?
They're within the timeline to join what we're calling the Renewable Highlands CCA, which began with those 4 communities. There is a small window. You know, we're not talking about a guaranteed customer base, but to allow that data analysis, there has to be a close-off period. But we're in conversation with quite a number of communities who are interested. As a matter of fact, I participated in the working group with the group called Citizens for Local Power. I was asked to sit in as an advisor, just generally because of my background in working in this area. And so that's largely Ulster County communities. And so there's a number of Ulster County communities that we're in conversation with, have been working with them to try to do some other community-based approaches for energy projects. And with the progress been made with the, with the wonderful elements of this program, our conversation is focusing on that as an opportunity for the communities. So we have upcoming conversations, presentations to the village and town of New Paltz. We spoke to Kingston, and there's interest. There's not the level of commitments, and we're telling them the same pathway and approach. But there's quite a few communities that we're at various stages of having conversation with.
Thanks.
So if we hire you as a consultant, we pay you a fee, is that correct? Or do you just take the money from the kilowatt?
Yeah, the municipality never pays for our work. Our work is done in hopes that we're going to deliver you a contract that you like. And if you do so, then it's the supplier in that third party in the contract that pays us.
Okay, and another question was, people can opt out at any time, right, with no penalty?
Right.
Can they opt back in? Can they jump back and forth?
Yeah, we were just talking about this actually. So the answer is that the supplier, when we put out that RFP, the suppliers can specify that, right? And we allow that in Westchester, and the supplier in the end that we ended up selecting said to us, yeah, we could charge them, but it's just more of an administrative hassle for us to keep track of that than anything. So they sort of said, it's okay, people can come back in and out. Theoretically, if you leave and then come back in, the supplier could ask you to pay a new rate based on where the market is at that time. And for larger consumers, right, so the opt-out, it only applies, it only becomes the default for residential and small business customers. Everybody else, every other service class, including the municipality itself for your meter for this building and all your other meters, you won't be automatically enrolled, but you can in fact opt in if it's a better deal than what you're getting currently. So for really large users, you're not going to be able to jump in and out because it's too hard for them to keep up with that. But for the smaller guys, it's okay.
Okay.
Good, okay. So I'm sure we'll be thinking this through, and we have your cards, and we know how to get a hold of you, and so we can.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll be following up. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll be moving on to the resolutions, though we do have our highway super here tonight. Hey, Howie. Want to thank you for an outstanding job of taking care of our town over the last, well, almost 3 months. It's been rather tiring, huh? Baptism by fire for you. So I know that we're going to be asking you to come on in and do a workshop with us in the next month or two, just to update everyone. So, but thanks for coming tonight, and thanks to Pete for coming too. Okay, so Em, do you want to go ahead and start with the resolutions?
Resolution 326-1 of 2018, resolution authorizing Hyde Park Town Assessor Kristen Cables to attend the Institute of Assessing Officers one-day seminar on advanced data collection.
Second,
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 326-2 of 2018, resolution approving budget revisions to the town of Hyde Park for the period of March 2018 budget revisions number 2018-03.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye. Resolution 326-3 of 2018, resolution authorizing the further extension of contract between the town of Hyde Park and Morris Associates for engineering services on an interim basis.
Second,
And I just want to clarify, an interim basis was left on from a prior resolution, so it's for the year of 2018, and we have Pete here tonight, so thank you, Pete. Thanks for providing excellent service to us again. So did we vote? I don't think we did. And we have a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 326-4 of 2018, resolution authorizing planning board member Diane DiNapoli to attend the 2018 Nature Across Boundaries Spring Forum on April 8th in New Paltz.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 326-5 of 2018, resolution authorizing police officer Jacqueline Tucker to attend the Female Enforcers Training, June 22nd, 2018, in Egg Harbor, New Jersey.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye. Resolution 326-6 of 2018, resolution accepting a donation from the Hyde Park Lions Club for Hyde Park Recreation's 2018 Music in the Parks.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 326-7 of 2018, resolution requesting the New York State Department of Transportation and Dutchess County Department of Public Works to lower the speed limit on East Dorsey Lane within the town of Hyde Park.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 326-8 of 2018, resolution authorizing Town Clerk Donna McGrogan and Deputy Town Clerk Patricia Cody Cullen to attend the New York State Town Clerks Association Annual Conference.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye. Resolution 326-9 of 2018, resolution approving a memorandum of agreement in connection with the collective bargaining agreement with the CSEA Town Hall Unit.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 326-10 of 2018, resolution appointing groundskeeper/cleaner.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
The last one, resolution 326-11 of 2018, resolution authorizing the town supervisor to execute an agreement with the County of Dutchess to provide police patrols in connection with driving while intoxicated laws.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow is Records Retention Day, or Records Management Day, so Town Hall will be closed, but we'll be here, meeting anyway, but, and packing up in boxes, papers and boxes, so, okay. So with that, may I have a motion to close the meeting?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
And
Second.
okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
Good job. Would you, I'm confused.
Like this, that's hard to figure out.
I know.